Welcome, infinite beings. Welcome back to the infinite me. I'm Mandy, and over there is Nat. And every day we show up here talking about a different topic to do with living an infinite life and what that looks like. So you don't have to ascend to your power. You don't have to awaken anything. You already are infinite. It's just a matter of remembering who we truly are at our core. So that's everything we're about here, is talking about all those things and tips and tricks and conversations that help you get into the moment of seeing your true infinite being that you are.
Yes.
So we have been doing a little mini series on the things that potentially stop you, if you like, from stepping into your infinite power, like what stops you from claiming that and knowing that's who you truly are and stepping into that space. So yesterday we're up to day 3 today, but yesterday's conversation was about coming out of the spiritual closet, if you like, in some way. So that stage that we sometimes go through on the consciousness journey where we feel a little bit afraid to share maybe our newfound kind of awakening in life with other people, if our family and friends say that perhaps are not on the same journey with us, and we feel a little bit reserved in sharing it, or a bit scared, or we feel we might be judged, and then how that actually holds us back from stepping into who we truly are by, letting those stories and the judgments kind of hold us back. So we talked all about that yesterday. It was a really powerful conversation, actually, yesterday's one. So, and today we are looking at stepping into your spiritual gifts and what spiritual gifts, your message, what you feel called to do in the world. Perhaps you've got certain skills that you've developed since you've been on the consciousness journey. A lot of people step into new ways of being, if you like, and sometimes they become very intuitive, or they start channeling something, or speak light language, or maybe they're an intuitive artist, all different things. So, and then I find a lot of people get stuck and don't fully show up as that, because it goes hand in hand with yesterday's conversation about that fear of really stepping out and being seen in the world. So we want to talk today all about not necessarily what holds us back in terms of analyzing it, but kind of like identifying some of the things that sort of maybe get in our way, and then how can we show up more in the world and be our true selves and deliver what we feel we're here to do, to be a vessel for that inspiration flowing through us. So that's today's conversation. So
very cool.
Yes.
Yeah, I think, I guess, coming up, we've just heard little stories a lot lately, I guess, coming into our awareness. And I feel for me as well, it hasn't been long since I've sort of started to step into this project, which now feels really congruent and true for me to do that.
Yeah.
And Mandy and I have worked together before for, a number of years, and that was like 10, 15 years ago. So it probably did feel a bit strange at the time to be doing that. Like, we hadn't long been doing consciousness type work. And I guess I'm really feeling a lot more comfortable now doing this. And I think part of that was actually finding a message, like really drilling down when we decided to get together back probably June or something, I guess it was now. It took us quite a lot of weeks, of soul searching and discussions and bouncing ideas off each other and off my partner, and sort of like, it's still not the right message. It's still not the right message type thing. And eventually we sort of hit on it, which was this one. And it was just like both of us just went, that's it. Okay, we've got it. Yeah. And from there, I think because we had really got the message that felt true for us, and obviously it's been refinement as we've gone through our conversations since July. Excuse me. We've had to really sort of refine that message and refine that message. It's like, okay, we're talking about infiniteness, but what is our actual messages about that? Like, what do we want to talk about with that? And just really diving in deeper and deeper levels of that has really helped. I know for me, I can speak for me, my certainty around the message that we're delivering now, and just that 100% aligned and congruent with that message. And I sort of feel like that's a bit of a starting point with this topic as well. Like, if there was a slight sort of deviation off the correct messaging or what you really are here to do, sort of thing. And it is like really pinpointed, detailed to the nth. It feels like that to the nth degree. That's your piece of what you're here to talk about. Any sort of slight deviation of that is going to sort of feel incongruent. And I think the actions then portray that. They play out that way, sort of thing. So maybe
and they feel harder too. Like they feel like it feels like more effort is involved because you're not congruent. Like it shows up in that too, I think.
It's effortful, yes. Yeah. Whereas having these sorts of conversations, and we've had conversations every day now, we've had probably 80 conversations about this. Maybe. And it's like ridiculous when you think about, like, somebody asked us, are you going to ever run out of topics? It's like, no, we're infinite. Of course we won't. But it is interesting that how can we turn up for 80 days straight, sort of thing, talking about the same topic and finding something to talk about. And I feel we're able to sort of channel that information from, that higher part of ourselves because it is so congruent. We sort of just feel like the channel to it when we talk about this stuff. I don't feel like I'm even here. It's not Nat talking. It's not you talking, Mandy. It's like we're having, it's like our two infinite selves having a conversation with each other and just throwing around concepts and ideas and possibilities, and maybe it's this and maybe it's that, and just exploration, which is obviously what the infinite loves to do, is just exploring topics and ideas and concepts. And it's just that form of creativity. And
I think a big part of that is actually allowing yourself the space to feel presence, to feel that presence coming through you as well, because that's where it all comes from. So it doesn't matter what the gift is, that's the space that it channels through you. I mean, you can still do certain things when you're not in that present state, but it just doesn't have the same impact or the same energy behind it, or it doesn't flow as well, like you were just saying. Like, it does feel more effortful when you're not in that present state. So that's a big piece of it, I think, is like having these conversations in the moment. We have to be present because otherwise
definitely
we get into our head, and we do at times. I definitely do at moments. I get in my head, and you can feel yourself trying to come up with what to say, and you kind of feel a little bit scrambly, or you're trying to make sure that you say things right, say it the right way or something like that. And so we have to be very present. So in some ways this has been a very good experiment, because it's really focused me on being present really quickly. And I've actually had people tell me when I've been in conversation with them more recently, saying, wow, you're just so present, like you're so in the moment. I was just like, that's kind of a newer skill, if you like, that I think I've been honing a bit more because of these conversations. Like, definitely paying more attention to that for sure. So
it's sort of interesting when we have these conversations, when you do get into your head. Like a couple of days I felt really off, and I'm excited to have the conversation. When I get into it, I feel really scrambled. And I feel like the words are not coming out right, and I'm grasping at trying to find the words, and then my head kicks in, and and it's really quite interesting how it plays out. And then I'm sort of trying to find a strategy to not do that, and then it's sort of like, okay, just come back to the breath, like breathe again, and and then just sort of you've really just got to center yourself again. Like, you could so easily go down that path and totally lose it. But I guess it's like anything, it's a practice, isn't it? Like, it's and we're talking about speaking right now. It's for anything that you do with your work, I suppose, is that
anything that's present,
bringing yourself back into presence. So, and if I'm sure everybody's had this experience, no doubt, but when you really do get into something that you really love doing, and we are really loving having these conversations, it really isn't you actually there as a human being. They're actually doing what you're doing. It is pure creativity flowing through you at that point. And so I feel now I'm at a stage where, if I didn't have these conversations and I wasn't putting this message out to people, I would feel really, I don't know, I could feel the energy of what it would be like, sort of bound up inside, and it would be just building and building and building type thing. Like, you feel like you want to explode almost, because it feels like it needs to come out. And if this is if you do have a gift, and everybody has a gift to bring to the world, and it's sort of like by not expressing that, then you have to be feeling that inside. It's like this perturbation type thing. Like the whole idea of perturbation is that, you know, the outside structure is so strong, it's holding, and inside is just building. Like talk about this atom bomb. This is how the bomb works. And then all of a sudden it's just like, because the pressure is so much inside. And that's what we, at times, if we're really not doing what we love and stepping into that, that's where it can unleash in anger and resentment and drama and all these things that we create in our life, because it's not finding its expression, and you're feeling that pressure. You've got to feel it. And it's frustrating when you don't know what it is as well. I mean, I think that's worse in some ways, is that, you know, go for so long thinking, oh, what's my purpose or what's my mission, and all those sorts of things that often get spoken about in consciousness work. And my God, I've been through years of that, knowing exactly what it is type thing, and trying different things and having some degree of success and some degree of fulfillment in other areas, but nothing felt like it feels like right now doing this stuff. So that's what I mean. Like when you really hit on what your thing is and what your message is, or what your expression of that thing is, as you say, it might be channeling, light language, or intuitive paintings, or intuitive reads, or like whatever it is. When you finally hit on that thing, like it's almost like you can't not put it out to the world. Like there's this natural feeling of wanting to do that, and by not doing that, there's just so much frustration, so much anger, so much resentment, perhaps building up inside. And
and I think that's definitely a big part of it. I think is that not knowing exactly, so we don't do anything sometimes like that. I definitely fell into that trap too. And it's as much as the clarity is good, and it helps you to then feel like you've got that energy moving through you, like I have to avoid stagnation as well, like, because I definitely got into that trap of procrastinating and stagnation, because I didn't feel like I had the clarity, and that's almost like a worse situation to get into, because there's no energy moving. Like the universe is constantly expanding, so like if you're not doing anything at all, like then you're kind of going against the natural flow of the universe, and that's why it feels so crappy. That's why you feel crappy in your body. You feel a bit depressed. Sometimes you get skin itchiness and breakouts from that type of thing too. I've noticed that sometimes that's how I become aware. Sometimes when I'm a bit stagnated, I get really itchy arms, or it's almost like it's trying to get out of you.
Trying to get out,
it's trying to get out of your body, sort of thing. And maybe it's like you don't know exactly what that thing looks like, but just do something. Like just do something that's in service towards that, even if you don't know what that is right now. As long as you're staying in motion, I think that's the biggest part of the biggest thing, is just doing something towards it, and then the clarity comes when you're in motion. And that's probably the biggest lesson I think I've got from our work here too, is because I was such a procrastinator, sitting in that space and not really moving. Even though I had some clarity, there was also a lot of fear overlaid over that, and so I convinced myself I was just confused and I didn't really know what I was doing. But that was pretty much an ego game that I was playing on some level too, because I did actually have a lot of clarity underneath. I wouldn't have necessarily said this was the exact vehicle of what we were going to do, but I had a clarity around, I'm here to talk about consciousness and do something around consciousness. And I've been almost saying that to myself for years, like about I want to mix spirituality and design, because my background is in graphic design. I mix consciousness and creativity, and so I'd been saying that, but I didn't quite know what the form was. But then this is where you have to be kind of quite careful and vigilant. Like we talk about a lot about being really vigilant for your awareness around the games that you can then convince yourself of, because that was a true feeling of, I'm here to do something with spirituality, consciousness and creativity. But then I would tell myself, but I don't know what that is yet. I haven't learned yet exactly what that is, or I need to do another course, or so all those games that you sort of keeps you in stagnation. Well, it did for me too anyway. But the biggest thing that I've noticed from this project is just having the conversations, because we literally didn't know what we were doing when we first started. We just said we feel like showing up and having a daily conversation, and didn't have no idea where this was actually going to go or what it was going to turn into. That was just felt like a really true feeling to do. But it's not until we actually started having these conversations that we actually fell into the groove of what we feel like we really want to be doing now, and our messaging has become a lot clearer, and we feel more at home with it all. We feel a lot more focused. Like there's been a lot of shifts just in a short period of time, but that's purely from being emotion. And so it's almost like I've had to, proved to myself for all these years that what I've been hearing and just not applying. It's actually so true about just being emotion is actually the thing that gives you the biggest impetus and clarity to keep going and put it out into the world. Like the confidence levels, like you talked about, is hugely different now, just because of actually taking the little steps and putting yourself out there a bit more in front of a wider audience and letting people see where you're at. And maybe you get, you stumble a bit and you don't know what to say, or you're like, it doesn't actually really matter at the end of the day, as long as you're showing up. People sort of feel the energy, not the action a lot of the time too. It's just where you're coming from. If you're coming from that true feeling for yourself, that's what people tap into. You don't have to be professional looking on the outside, like it's, just show up.
Yeah. Jasmine's getting a lot out of what you're just saying. That's really cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I agree. It's oftentimes, like we hear it, said so many times, you don't actually know what you want, but you know what you don't want.
Yeah.
And to me, it's sort of been like that. Like I was very much like you before I met Jodie. I was very much that procrastinator and sort of padding around the edges, pretending to be busy and pretending to be moving on a project.
Busy, not productive.
Yeah, that's it. And anyone can be busy. Like I certainly mastered the art of that. I know when I got together with Jodie, I was like, she is the little doer. And she would be getting in, she'd be doing this stuff and she'd be doing that. And I would partway through a conversation and then she'd be off and she'd be already doing the research for it and be already done this and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, holy crap, like, wow. And it was really confronting at first. And eventually I started to catch on. I was like, okay, I can see what I've been doing. Not wrong, but what I've been doing is that I've not been doing anything. I just keep talking about it over and over again. She kept saying that to me. She goes, you keep running the same story. You keep telling me the same thing over and over and over again about how you're going to put something together. It's like, so just do it. Like, I was like, oh, yeah, I guess. Like,
But sometimes the reason why we don't do that thing, but it's because there is that underlying fear, which we spoke about in day one of the mini-series, is like we're afraid of that power we know on some level is going to come through us when we fully step into it. I know 100%.
You have a knowing of how
that's what my avoidance strategy was procrastination. Like on some level I was aware of it, but it was almost like I would have told myself I don't know how to overcome it. That was a statement I used to tell myself a lot. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to move past this. Like I've always been like this. But the truth underneath that is that I wasn't making the commitment to making that the priority to live from this infinite space, which is, I guess, why we're so passionate about what we are talking about here, because that's been the thing for us, is this like the actual stepping 2 feet into, you know what, I'm going to go for it. And I know if I have an awareness and I know at my core that I'm an infinite being, then start acting that way, like, and start showing up and not
step into it,
letting yourself off the hook anymore, because I was constantly letting myself off the hook. It's so easy to do, like to just go, I'll do it tomorrow, or
I'll be infinite tomorrow.
Like that kind of, like, that there's something calling you to do, like an inspiration, but you just don't do it, or you don't fully do it. Like I used to kind of half finish things a lot, like I'd sort of convince myself that I was bored, the inspiration's gone, or it's just all bullshit story. Like it's kind of, it's just that fear of not fully stepping into something. And I became fully aware of this actually in the coaching program I did last year with Jennifer Hoff, which is called Flight School, and it's a year-long program, and it's really diving deep into living an infinite life. And so all your stuff comes up to see all the ways that you kind of, hold yourself back and convince yourself that you're not infinite. So I got to see the major energy that I had flowing through me particularly from a creativity point of view, my background is graphic design. So I would be excited about a project for a client, and I'd have all these ideas kind of, floating through my head, and I'd get really excited. But then when it would come time to actually starting the project, sometimes I would just procrastinate and procrastinate and procrastinate. And then it would get to the deadline. And so then I'd rush and I'd get it done. Like, so I'd always get it done, but it was like, I was sick of that cycle of like the sitting back. And it wasn't like anything wasn't happening in that space. I was still thinking, and stuff was going through my, subconscious, as it does with concepts when you work in creativity. Like, a lot of it's when you're in your downtime that your ideas kind of flow to you. When you're in present, when you're just present and not sort of putting pressure on yourself, that's when the stuff clicks together. But under deadline, it forced me into being present and to being intuitive and trusting what was coming through. So I had all this evidence that I could do it, but I just wasn't. I was letting the time pressure dictate how I showed up, basically. So that's been a big one for me. But what I got to play with in the flight school program was what I was noticing, actually, more than anything, was that I get really excited with this energy coming through, and then I would actually physically almost feel myself pull back from the energy. So instead of letting it just come through me and go into the design or whatever I was doing, I would literally pull back. And as soon as I did that, the distractions would pop in. Oh, I'm just going to go and have a piece of toast. I'll just go and hang the washing out. Oh, the dog needs to go for a walk. Like, just all these little things that you just let in. And then next thing, the inspiration's kind of moved on, or it's hard to get back into that momentum state again. So like the longer we let ourselves sit in stagnation, it's so much harder to get going again than if we stay in motion. And I was so sick of that cycle. But I got to see that and really feel it in my body was the biggest thing too, is that felt that energy coming through. And then I noticed what I was doing in my mind was, it was actually excitement, but then my mind was labeling it as fear. And so that's why I would pull back. But the excitement and fear actually feel really, really similar in the body.
They do.
They almost feel exactly the same. Like, it's only the mind then that probably puts that layer on top that it's a fear and you've got to be afraid of it and watch what you're doing and things like that. But I would notice that, I was so quick to label it as I'm afraid, and then I would pull my energy back. So once I started playing with that, I started getting these bigger projects coming towards me, like way bigger than I've ever taken on before. And I was almost like, oh my God, feels really out of my comfort zone. But I noticed that it wasn't actually an excitement. Like, my initial response was excitement. And then I would notice my mind kicking in, going, oh, you can't do that. That's beyond your capability. You always leave it to the last minute, and you can't leave this one to the last minute. You'll screw it up. All the past stories that I was telling myself were coming in. But in that moment, I was just like, no, my initial response is yes. So just say yes, and then work out how you're going to, not even work it out. It's like just say yes to it, and the energy will take you forward. So I was starting to play with that and just noticing there was a huge difference in letting the energy come through versus blocking it, and how that then used to stuff up parts of my life, basically. Like, it felt like I was blocked in all these other areas in my life too, because I wasn't letting the expression come through.
Yeah, affects your money, affects your relationship. Like, it's amazing how much it does affect everything when you're not allowing that energy to flow through, because that is your truth.
Yes.
Just been saying that she can really relate.
It's the right projects, It's a big one. I mean, especially if you work in the creativity space, it's actually part of the process to go through a phase. They call it sometimes like the ugly teenager phase, where it just feels like it's not working. It's not coming together, because you're trying to put all these ideas and you're trying to work out how they all fit together and the best way to make it congruent. And so that's part of the process, but it's easy to get stuck in that phase sometimes too. And then I used to have the stories, and then would overlay going, oh, see, you don't know what you're doing. And, that's when you've got to be very vigilant for what's going on, for yourself too, and clearing the space and allowing yourself to sit in that present space that you're capable of doing. We're all capable of doing it. It's just whether we let ourselves do it. So
I know what's really helped for me lately is we always talk about getting yourself out of the way, sort of thing, and it's really dawned on me only a day or two back, and I think I was talking to you even for the money situation. It's sort of like I think I was in the shower or something, and it came to me, and I was like, wow, my finances actually have nothing to do with me, like as in my human self.
Yes.
Like if everything's just flowing through you and
Yes.
it's going to ebb and flow, like we talked about the other
Yes.
day, like everything in life actually ebbs and flows.
Yes.
So the guy, the guy I was listening to, and I can't remember who it was saying that, sometimes he felt like he had money and other times he didn't feel like he had money. He felt really, really poor. Other times he was quite abundant. And oftentimes it wouldn't actually be any change in his bank account. It was just how he felt towards his bank account. And I was like, yeah, I really do get that. But it was sort of like that those feelings flowing through has to be part of the infinite, because the infinite is everything. So you're not doing anything wrong by having the feelings that you're having or the emotions that are coming up or your approaches to things or anything. You can't stuff it up as such, because
definitely not.
it's not actually you. And I think this is what I wanted to get to with this conversation as well, is like, it's almost arrogant in some ways, I feel, to not be putting your stuff out there 100%, because it's actually coming from the infinite. It's coming from God, coming from the universe. It's not your stuff.
Yes.
It's the gifts that you've been given to put out to the world, or the particular interest that you have in, whatever you're interested in, sort of thing, like whatever your hobby or your interest is, and you feel like you want to speak about that, or you want to draw or design, or you want to write, or however you put your stuff out to the world, and that's what you feel moved to do. It's a gift from the universe. It's not yours to stop.
Yes.
And I feel that that's why you feel the discomfort, because you get, and it's almost like you say, look, I know I've got this really great gift of channeling XYZ, whatever. But actually, I'm not going to put that out to the world. Thanks anyway for the gift, but I'm not ready for it. I'm sort of like, really, like that's pretty much what you're saying.
Yes.
It's like, okay, but and then it's, I don't know, it's like giving somebody a gift. When you give somebody a gift and they sort of go, oh, thanks, put it aside type thing. It's like, okay, that's probably the last time I'm going to do that. But if somebody really appreciates it and they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, yeah, I'm going to go and hang that up now in the kitchen, or I'm going to use it. Like, oh, I can't wait to use it.
Yes.
Like, cool. Like, there's such a different energy with that. And like, why would the universe or God or the infinite be any different to that?
Yes.
It's sort of like, if you're going to use your gifts, I'll give you more gifts. I'll give you more stuff. I'll give you more resources. I'll give you whatever you need because you're using it. But I do feel like there's a little bit of, and I know it's not meant to be an arrogance thing because it's just people.
It's not a conscious thing. Yeah.
Yeah. You're not realizing what you're doing, but it's sort of like, maybe this conversation is important to sort of say, like, if you're not putting gifts out to the world, then you're pretty much saying it's your gift and it's not your gift in the first place.
Yes.
And then judging about how that gift is going to be received by somebody else or a group of people or by the world. And it's sort of like, it's not yours to judge about how that actually is going to be received. We have no idea how people are actually going to receive it because we've not given the opportunity to actually receive it. So we don't know. Like, we're just making a whole bunch of assumptions.
Yeah.
But then we're also judging that the backup plan is not in place for it. Like that, okay, you feel to have these conversations. We feel to have these conversations. Yeah. We feel moved to do that. So we could have sat there and went, oh, shit, I know I really feel moved to do it, but I don't think I will do it. I think we'll just sort of sit on this information and stuff like that because I don't know what's going to happen next, sort of thing. Like, I don't know that, how it's going to be received, but then I don't know, like, where it would go to or,
that
sort of
can't
thing.
see how I make money out of that. I can't see how.
Like, we're forgetting that if you've got a gift and it's meant to come out to the world, there's probably a backup plan that goes with it. Like,
we're always supported by the universe. Everything's happening for us.
Yeah, you're probably already. It's probably already organized. Like, we don't have to really worry about that. So all the stuff that we feel like we're worrying about by putting our stuff out to the world is sort of like, is just you taking ownership of that particular gift instead of allowing it to channel through you and taking your hands off and going, it's actually not mine to
Yes.
judge or stop or do any of those things. I just,
Yes.
all it's doing is flowing through, and we can certainly testify to that feeling, because this doesn't feel like my message as such, as in Nat's message. It feels like just something that's coming through us to talk about. Like I certainly, if I was to really think about, I couldn't sit and have these conversations every day as Nat. Like, I mean, lots of information that flows through that I've learnt from books and going to courses and stuff like that. But, you know, the different points that we make and the different quotes that we have and the different things that we've learnt in courses and stuff are triggering because we're doing it and because it is channeling. Like I couldn't remember all this stuff. To actually have a Nat conversation.
Like your brain accesses other parts because you're just getting out of the way of it. Sort of thing. So it pieces things together and recalls information and it sees a pattern and this connects to that, or that's a good story. Like you're not consciously really thinking about it, but this is where your brain actually does help you, you know, like rather than that we feel like it hinders us sometimes with the stories, but this is where it starts to work for you, which is actually what the brain does. It's in service to the heart, like it's in follows the heart, like
there still
when you're moving from that space. And the other thing that was coming up with what you're saying too is like it could be easy to kind of say, oh, I've got this gift and I'm not it looks like sometimes we might be putting it to the side, but sometimes that is out of a we haven't grown into the gift yet, so it actually is a little bit outside of our skill level right now. Like it's pushing us out and our comfort zone as well. So we often hold ourselves back because we think, oh, I don't know how to do that. And that might actually be true. Like I know that's happened to me quite a number of times where I've had an idea and an inspiration and I literally think I don't actually know how to do that yet. Like it's sort of, so I would put it on the side, but then leave it on the side and not actually do anything about it. Like not actually take that course that was going to help me with the skill that I needed for that. You know, there's one idea I had that I needed to really up my Photoshop skills for the vision that I could see in my mind, sort of thing. Like, so as much as I could do some Photoshop, this was asking me to go to another level. And so I've bought a course and I haven't actually, you know, done it yet because my focus has actually shifted a bit. Like I think it will come into play down the track with what stuff we're doing here, but right now it's not the focus. But I was aware of how much I held myself back because I didn't take that step of moving into the space of learning the skill or showing up differently or creating the space, which we've talked about before that we've had to do for this project, is actually creating the inner space so that you've actually got room for this new energy to come through you. So that's just literally like sitting in presence and acknowledging the fears and the stuff that's coming up, the stories and the fears, and letting it kind of move through you and out, sort of thing, so that you're not holding on those stories anymore. And then you create more space and it feels like the energy comes flooding through you then, and all of a sudden you feel like, oh wow, I can do that. Like it's kind of, or in the case of these lives, like I definitely have had like almost zero what's the word, experience being on camera or talking in the flow like this. It's kind of like, so when that's, oh, we're going to do it live and we're going to go every day, and I was kind of like, shit, like, okay.
Well, I'm the same, because it's like we haven't had these conversations. I can do this with Jodie, no problems. We've bantered back and forth on camera for years, but I'd never done it with you. And I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting, actually, like, because knowing that you haven't done it, and I was like, oh shit. Then I was feeling the weight of that as like, oh, okay, do I have to hold the conversation? Like, you know, I'm going to be hosting it all the time, sort of thing. Like, how is this going to work? Because you don't have the experience. Like, it was really interesting what came up.
Yeah, especially when Nats, I said, oh, we're starting tomorrow. And I was like, okay, like it's kind of like, all right, let's just, but at the same time, it was kind of like, well, like, it's not like we had an audience or anything at that point in time. So it's like, okay, well, who cares? Like,
and you can always take them down on Facebook if you don't like them.
Yeah, that's true too. And thought, okay, maybe somebody might see in the moment that, oh, so-and-so's gone live and they happen to watch, but it's not like we had a Facebook page yet or audience so it was kind of like I took the pressure off myself then going, oh, who cares? Like, it's just a conversation. let's just play with it and see
You're
where it
always
goes. Like, and,
like this, yeah.
yeah. So that was kind of, sometimes you do just have to like stretch yourself to learn how to use the gift in a better way, rather than letting that stop you and be another excuse for not moving on things. And yeah, just seeing what Jasmine wrote there about Elizabeth Gilbert's book, Big Magic, on that subject. Yeah, that's a great book.
It's an awesome book. I read that.
Creativity.
Great. Jodie read that book to me in Greece. I said,
Read it to you.
Yeah. She said, I want to read the book. And I said, can you read it to me? She did.
Audio book.
So. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Probably actually like audio books. She doesn't have to read it to me.
Yes. The other thing that was coming up too was back on what you're talking about. That sort of sense of arrogance almost about, you know, we're here to be like the vessel for that feeling moving through us, like to be that expression of the infinite. And when we sort of get caught up, or we feel like the gift is there, but then we put it to the side, or that type of feeling too, it's like that's when we get stuck in the ego part, the little human part of us that we think is running the show. And intuitive friend of ours, 𝙒𝙬𝙤𝙪, who we've talked about before from Bondi Guru, I had a intuitive read with her before we started this project, so maybe like 4 or 5 months ago, and I hadn't had a session with her for years. And so it was a bit of catching up, you know, just what are you up to these days? And then I sort of shared with her all these things I wanted to do, like, and they're all really big projects, like, I've always had them sitting there knowing that I was here to do something with them, but I just felt quite overwhelmed with how to, literally, that's what I was, so overwhelmed with how to start, like, how do I get this out there, like, which one do I pick, you know, like, I don't want to make a mistake almost feeling. And she listened to all the things that I said I wanted to do, and then she sort of said, the problem is you're coming from the little Mandy. You think that it's the little Mandy that's got to do all these projects. And she said, that's why you feel so overwhelmed. She said, it's got nothing to do with you. Like, it's the infinite coming through you. Like, so just get out of the way, like, and let it come through you. Like, you don't have to work out how to do these things. It's only your ego mind that's telling you, I need to control this. Needs to go this way. I need to probably limit the energy flowing through you because you're a bit scared of it. That's definitely for me, I was scared of how much power was going to come through me, or it was going to overtake me, or which we spoke about in a conversation about 4 or 5 days ago. I think we spoke about that, the different separation sort of stories that we have going on that stop us from moving forward on different things. So, but that was such a great reminder that she said about, it's not you. It's not you trying to do all these things at the end of the day, not the little Mandy. It's the bigger part of you. So tap into that space, and then the stuff will start to flow. And then not long after, you know, Nat's approached me about this project, and we're kind of, you know, snowballing where this is going to. So it's kind of, and a lot of those ideas are actually literally coming into this now. So it's quite funny how it's actually unfolded. And I know it's literally because I've got out of the way of it and I've created the space for it, more energy to come through me now. I've got more capacity to flow it through me now and bring it to the world. Yeah.
And I think it's about not judging the journey that you take as well. You know, like, it hasn't felt true for me to talk about consciousness stuff for 10 years. You know, we've been off talking about travel stuff and house sitting and the things that we were doing. And for a long time that felt true. It got to the stage where it didn't feel true. And that's when sort of weed your way out of it type thing, and you move out of that space. But it's sort of interesting now to come back full circle into talking about consciousness again and revisiting that. But now that we're doing this project, it's the skills that I've learnt over doing the stuff about travel, which a lot of focus was actually on marketing. And I sort of feel like I've got a bit of a degree in marketing now, like bootstrapping our way through the marketing stuff. But just being so interested in the psychology and the human behavior that goes with marketing, which obviously was my version of sort of consciousness at that stage. Like, Jodie is also into all this work. So we would sit and just talk about, you know, the human behavior and the consciousness that goes into this. Why do people why do they respond to this color button and not this, and this image? All this is like just all that stuff that goes into marketing. It's so fascinating. And now, and technology is the other thing. Like, we've really loved keeping up to date with the new technologies that are coming in for marketing. And now coming into this project, it's sort of like, oh, bang, 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 bang. Like, yep, I know how to, that service is going to be hooked up to there. We're going to do this. We're going to do, I'll just make up the page now for that, blah, blah, blah. Like all this stuff that I've been doing so naturally for the past 5 years, or learned how to,
coming into play now.
Now actually is coming back into play for this project. And we've set this project up really quickly compared to what it would have taken if we had to learn all the skills for that.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's something really interesting is like, oh, okay, that wasn't really my thing. It was for a while, and we did lots of cool things. We did summits and put out books and courses and all sorts of things. So we have served people in that space. But it wasn't my absolute, like, oh my God, this is my life's passion type, which is what this feels like more. So sort of like that, there is sometimes a bit of a journey to get to really putting out what is your sort of ultimate message, I guess, that you want to speak. It takes a while to find what that is.
As I was talking to one of my mentors last night, and the one that I did the coaching program with last year, and she was talking to me a little bit about this project that we're working on here together, and she's just sort of reflecting back. She said, oh, you guys are just so in your flow, like you're so in your element now. It's just coming through you so strongly. It's like you've been waiting, your whole life for this moment in some ways. And so it does feel like that, like it's all coming together. And I sort of said it's funny because I said my sister and I have actually worked together before, and it had some degree of kind of
sort of success
thing, but
one thing on
we didn't really know what we were kind of doing. Like we're a little bit floundering with having a clear message really at the end of the day. Like we didn't know exactly who we were serving and why we were doing it and all that kind of stuff. So we had fun in the process, but it was not really kind of going anywhere at the end of the day, as much as it could have been. So we abandoned it.
It wasn't the right one either. It was about beliefs.
I think it was that. Yeah.
It was called Beyond Belief Experiences, and it was all about obliterating your beliefs and changing those. And it's like now we know in the context of where beliefs sit, and it's sort of like it wasn't the ultimate message.
Well, I think it was true, and then it became incongruent because we up-leveled to a different, we expanded our awareness and consciousness and understanding of things, so that then it became like, no, this is not where to go now. But as she sort of said to me, she said, oh, it's you're in alignment with each other now. That's what it is. Like your journey has brought you now to this point, and now you're in alignment, and now it's flowing. It's like, that's 100% what it is. So we each had to go away and do our own thing, have our own journey, and then come back together again at the perfect time to now have it flow through us. And that's if you're working in collaboration with somebody, of course. Like if it's just yourself, then sometimes that happens for us as well. Like we might have a different career going that we really kind of enjoy, but then at some point it just feels like, this is not speaking to me anymore, and I really want to go and do intuitive painting, but I don't, I'm feeling called to it, but I don't quite know what that looks like. So you go and take a course or have a mentor or something like, and then you start down that path. But we can get blocked in that process of actually letting ourselves go down that path because of the fear of letting go of the old, or not letting ourselves up level to a new way of being, and creating the space for that to come through too. So there's all different things that are involved in moving into something different. Like there's energetics, and then there's actual skill sets, and then there's your attitude towards it, and all different things, come into play. So it's like, where are we putting our focus? Like, are we infinite or not? Like it's kind of having to keep bringing it back.
You're either one or the other. You are or you're not. So you've got to make the choice that you are and run with that. And I guess that's where, like, if you're not putting your work out fully to the world, like either you're not doing it at all or you're not doing it 100% out to people, then there is that degree of separation. You're saying that
100%.
There has to be. There has, logically, there has to be that degree of separation from God, from the universe, from the infinite flowing through you, and you have suddenly just become little Mandy or little Nat or little whoever. And that's you do have to really watch that. Like it's and then the judgments and the stories start. Oh, people are not ready for this work. And it's sort of like, well, you wouldn't have the skill, like the gift, and it wouldn't be coming to you to put it out to the world if the world wasn't ready for it, or somebody in the world wasn't ready for it. You influence everyone in the world. Like, is everyone ready to step into their infinite zone? No, of course they're not. There's probably a very small fraction of people that are.
Yeah.
At that stage, perhaps. I don't know. But we won't know until we step into it. And then it's sort of like, it's got, whoever comes in contact with your message or your work has nothing to do with you. It's a contract between them and the universe, them and God, like about, and I do remember that sort of saying, it's like, is it your business? Is it yours and God's business, or is it God's and somebody else's business? So like, don't get involved in somebody else's and God's business type thing. Like, it's, and you do have to keep reminding yourself of that as you put stuff out, and these stories come up and these judgments come up of like, people are, that person won't understand this, or they won't get it, or they're not ready for it, this message sort of thing. And it's like, well, just give them a chance to be ready for it. Like, everybody has to be confronted with something to move to the next level. Like, and if they're not confronted with something, your work or somebody else's, then they have no chance to move to that next level. Like, you appreciate being confronted by work that is new to you and a new message that you might at first not get. You know, plenty of times we've picked up books like A New Earth. I picked up A New Earth to start off with from 𝘋𝙤𝙤𝙀 and just went, I have no idea what this is about. But then eventually it became like, oh, okay, yeah, I get this now. Like, and then it becomes like, oh, of course. Like, duh.
Seems simple, like, it's like, oh wow, why didn't I get that before? But expanded your awareness of things. If
you hadn't written that book, I wouldn't have got that possibility of actually having those stepping stones to go up, where it does become natural for me to know that stuff. So it's sort of like, who are you to not put your stuff out to the world, to stop people and deny people from, like, and 100% put it out to the world without fear. And the fears still do come up. I'm not saying without fear, actually. I shouldn't say that, because the fears do come up.
Yeah, they will come up.
It's sort of like, okay, then there's something for you to see about that. Like, why are the fears? Like, if the law of reflection tells us that everybody in our sphere is only ever a reflection of our consciousness, the more certain you are about your work and the message that you're putting out, the less feedback you're going to get back, because you don't have that. You don't need it. You're just speaking your truth in every moment. You're channeling whatever is coming through you. And there isn't the pushback as much. And if there is, like we've been talking about over the last few days, it doesn't affect you. You just stay on course. That is your path. That's your God-given path. You stay on it, and it doesn't matter what's going on in the outside world. It's not your concern.
You use it as a tool, as we've talked about before. This is where the ego is helpful, because it shows you the part of yourself that you haven't expanded into yet. So it's not that that person is a direct reflection. There is that whole concept of mirroring, which is not 100% true. Like, it's kind of, it's more what that feeling brings up in you. So that interaction with that person or what they're saying, it's like, it's what it brings up in you. That's the part where the reflection part, if you like. It's like seeing that thing that's being stirred within you to look at. So that fear or that blockage or whatever, that is to look at that. And the other thing I was just thinking too is that sometimes we have separated our gifts and haven't made the connection between how to bring them together,
that's
or a fear. I think it still feels a bit like a fear, because I'm just thinking for myself, my background is graphic design. And then probably over, along my consciousness journey, but definitely more so in the last, say, 3 years, definitely had a sense of being able to, I wouldn't say like channel in the form that most people might think channeling is, but more like I would be talking with a friend, and I would just get a definite feeling of something that was for her. Like, so it was actually maybe like an energetic feeling in my body, and I had to try and interpret how to put that into words, because it wasn't like I heard a voice, but I just had this feeling that there was something in this, what I was feeling. And I'd say, oh, not sure what this is, but I'm seeing this kind of an image, or I'm feeling that. She's like, oh my God, like, yeah, that's kind of really landing. Or I'd word something in it. It's almost like I'd hear between the words of what she was saying, and I'd reflect something back to her, and it would always be kind of spot on. And so I started like honing that gift a little bit just with that particular friend, because I was really getting it really strongly with her for some reason, like, and because we just get into these in the flow conversations, I think, and that's probably why, and just being in that present state. So it was coming through, and so I'd practice that gift almost. But then it wasn't until I was in the coaching program last year that my mentor said to me, you actually haven't let your design clients see this side of you at all. Like, you haven't brought this part in, this really intuitive side on some level. And I said, no, I haven't really. Like, and she said, well, you're actually kind of doing them a disservice, really, because you're not actually letting them have the full access of what you're capable of. And it's like, oh, okay, I hadn't really thought about it like that. But then I was like, oh, how do I bring that together? Like, I hadn't really sort of even considered that they could be together, you know, like, it was kind of, sometimes we're just not aware and someone makes that connection for us, or we need to just sit down and brainstorm, sit with a friend and just brainstorm ideas. Like, I love in particularly doing that kind of stuff, like brainstorming and see really creative ways that people can join a whole bunch of things together. So oftentimes we just haven't actually explored how to make something work properly. We get stuck at the I don't know, and then we don't go any further kind of thing.
Well, they seemingly are so different to each other that you can't bring it together. It's like, oh, how could I be interested in fishing and knitting? Like, how on earth would that ever come together? Like,
and they may not too. Like, that's the thing. Sometimes they are completely separate things.
But it's amazing when they do.
Yeah, sometimes there is a very common thread running between a bunch of things that you're quite capable of doing.
Drops in and you go, oh my God, like that is so obvious. How come I never saw that before? That connection where I could be doing this, putting it out, doing all the stuff I love. That's amazing. Like, it's so interesting when it does fall into place like that. I've had a couple of experiences like that, and it's like, oh my God, that's so clever. Like,
and oftentimes it's the thing that you would actually love to create for yourself. So it's almost like your ideal solution to a problem that you've been trying to solve for yourself. It's almost like you're here to create that thing on some level, because you've got all the skills, or there are all the things that you've been looking for. So you've trained yourself in all those things over the years and honed your skills. And then it's almost like, okay, well, I could create something now with all of these different skills because I was looking for this thing. So therefore, there's probably other people that are looking for that too. Like, I'm just thinking in terms of my husband's coming to mind. Actually, he plays drums, and he's played drums since teenage years. So he's very good at it. It's just so natural for him. Like, he just knows how to do it. Like, he can listen to a song once and play the drums to it. Like,
I've watched that. It's amazing.
He just intuitively picks up a beat, like, on a song. And he could sit there and decipher, like, the difference between the bass and the lead guitar, and he just has this ear for it, natural ear for it. And so I've said to him many times before, like, you could, because he's been trying to think of what other things could he potentially do, you know, with his career. And so I said, well, why don't you be an intuitive drum teacher? Like I said, I know you don't have the skill necessarily in, say, teaching it, but you could learn that part of it. You know, you've just never sat down and deciphered how you actually do it. Like, how do you hear a song and
your strategy?
That? Oh, I can't read sheet music. I said, who cares? You never did. So
the people that want to play intuitively don't want to read sheet music.
Other people out there that would love to learn intuitively too. They don't want to learn how to do sheet music, but they've got a natural ear for music, but they just don't know how to maybe apply it, and they just need some direction. So I keep sort of saying to him, I think there's a whole big thing for you in that. Like, you could just sit down and work out how you learn it and then teach that. Like, that's all it is, but you've just never sat down and thought about it. So it feels like, I don't know how to teach it. But we've just got to put some energy sometimes and some time into actually sitting with a thing and working out our process so that we can help somebody else with that. But don't sort of write off ideas because you think, oh, I don't know this, or people wouldn't want that. And I said to him, well, you never wanted to learn music. Like, you didn't want to read sheet music. I mean, you didn't want to learn that. You just wanted to play, and it was a natural skill. So don't you think there's other people out there that be feeling exactly the same way? So it's
I would love to do that. I'd love to play the drums or some instrument, but I definitely don't want to learn music because I have tried to do that before. It's way too complicated for me. Like, I just don't have the mind for it. So like, but would I love to play the drums? Yeah, I definitely would. I think that'd be really fun.
Yes. And that's what I mean. I think there's the same with any of our gifts that we've got. There's somebody out there that is wanting that gift. I guess that, to me, it's almost like that's the point of the reality game, if you like. It's like the infinite is here to express and express itself in all its forms. So there'll be somebody to receive that. Like, some part of the infinite is here to receive that energy as well and have that experience of receiving that gift. So it is kind of a bit arrogant maybe on a subconscious level, but it is arrogant to sort of think, you know, from the little me that, oh, I don't have anything to offer the world, or
or the world's not ready for it, or the world won't accept it, or I don't know what will happen when I do put it out. It's like, no, you don't. That's right. You're not meant to. Like, that's the point. You don't know. Like, nobody knows. We don't know about this stuff either. Like, we're just putting it out and seeing where it goes. Like, we've got no idea where this is going to go. Like, who knows in 5 years' time? Who knows in 6 months' time where we might be with this project? It'll be so fascinating to look back on this conversation where we're talking about it right now. In 6 months' time, where are we going to be? Like September, so March next year. Where are we going to be in March next year? No idea. No idea. So it's so interesting. We might not even be doing this project.
Well, that's true too.
Like, who knows? That's the thing, and I think that's the whole point of the infinite. Is it is the unknown that does bring up the scariness of it, because it's like, oh, shit, could be anything. It might all fall apart. And really, approaching a project or something, you've got to be willing to accept that it could actually all fall apart and fail. It could happen. Yes, you may not be doing it in 6 months' time. You might put all this effort into it,
or you lose interest,
or you put a course out and no one buys it. Like, and that's why it's got to be so important that it is actually true for you, because you're not doing it for the world. You're doing it for you.
Yes.
And I really do come back to this, because this was something that happened to us, is that we did put out a course about house sitting, and a few people did a lot of pushback on it. We don't need a course for house sitting. We shouldn't be sort of trying to regulate the industry and all this sort of stuff. And I was like, okay, well, I did the course because that's what came through me. I actually wanted to do the course. That's what I felt to do. So I actually don't give a rat's ass what you think about it. Don't buy it. Somebody else will buy it. And sure enough, we had plenty of people that bought it. So it's sort of like, you're not doing it for the outside world. You're doing it because it's your expression that's sitting there that has to come out. There's this feeling that just needs to come out to the world. So just do it for you then. Don't worry about everybody else and what they're going to think about and all that sort of stuff, because ultimately, at the highest truth, they're not even out there. It's your consciousness. So,
and it's almost like we dilute. I feel like we dilute our gift when we put our focus outside of ourselves on it being of service. Ultimately, it ends up being of service, because that's when it's a true feeling coming through you, you'll be met with a true support or acceptance or receiving of your gift on some level too in the world. So it's kind of like we don't almost need to worry about that part, because it does put the focus outside of us when we start thinking about
that's the thing,
how it's received.
We are experiencing that in these conversations right now. Like, we're having these conversations because it feels true for us. You and I always have sat here over the years talking about consciousness stuff for hours. I think the longest session went for 4 or 5 hours. And it's like, oh, well, we might as well record them so people can hear them, because it's pretty cool stuff. So we did, and that's what we're doing. That's what these are. And yes, now there's people watching, and we're getting feedback saying, wow, I got a lot out of that. Like, that's amazing. Really enjoying these conversations. Like, it's really shifting the way I look at things and stuff like that. There's no trying for us to do that. Like, we're not having a conversation to try and help somebody. We're just having a conversation that as it flows through. And I think that's fun
for us.
For putting your work out there, is you do it for you, and then it influences the world to the people that are meant to get it. And that's not for you to decide who that is. So
hold ourselves back because of that, definitely. So.
If you are going to put the focus on, like, if you are holding yourself back from either starting and not doing anything, or 100% putting it out to people, then it's just that you've got your focus in the wrong spot. You've got to bring it back to you. Write that book because it's true for you to write that book. Say whatever is coming through.
Definitely.
That's what I'm saying. Loving the chat.
That's cool.
Let's see. Here we go. Show this to Andrew. Music without reading it. Exactly. Another person.
I used to play by ear, but quit when I was 7 when they tried to teach me to read music.
Exactly. I reckon there is tons of people out there that would love to learn music, but would hate to be reading music, like sheet music, because it does remind them back when they were 7 years old and their parents forced them to learn the piano. And it's just like, I know Jodie would. She would love to be some sort of musical musical thing.
Yeah.
And she talks about that. She said, I'd love to
Yeah,
play
I'd like
some
to learn the
musical
piano,
instrument.
but not have to learn sheet music. I'd like to
Yeah.
play the piano and just, almost bought a piano one time. I remember there was a free piano getting given away somewhere once near where we were living, and I almost talked Andrew into getting it, but then he was like, oh, then we have to move it to the next place. But there was at that moment, there was actually such a true feeling for me to get a piano.
Yeah.
And I used to play a little bit on the organ with my grandfather, like when he was still alive. And I used to love doing that, like playing on the organ, but I never got really proficient at it. But there was very simple chords, like reading chords in a book, like it wasn't sheet music. But I always had this true feeling like I'd love to be able to play piano, like
amazing.
But then it didn't follow through on it, sort of thing. So like it's kind of, but it's always there in the background, that little feeling of like, oh, once maybe when I've got our own place and we're not house sitting so much, I'll get a piano and find somebody that could teach me how to do it intuitively, or Google it or something. There'll be some course, I'm sure, online.
Okay, sheet music is, and I guess that's the other point too, and maybe you can transfer this to whatever gift you might have, is like learning sheet music is one way to learn how to play the piano or the drums. One way.
Yes.
But another way that's equally as effective and probably a bit faster is to do it intuitively, to actually feel the music coming through. That's obviously what Andrew's doing. He's feeling the music and he's finding that track, that underlying track that sits there, that's the drums, with the bass and all the other tracks that sit there. He can tune into that one track. And it's like that takes so much presence to actually decipher in one block of music, that one track that sits there, that's called the drums. And you have to be really present with that. And you have to be present with the drums. Like I remember when we were in Sydney and we were all living together, all our brothers and all of us. And he had the drum set and he was teaching me some of the drum set and stuff. And it's like, oh, this is really fun. Like I'd never do anything more than just be a hobby with it. But it was a really nice outlet, and I would sometimes go in and actually just play them because it was just something different to do, and it was just fun. But because he had taught me a few of the chords and how to move and bits and pieces, it's like I could still do that. Like I could actually sit there and play like a proper drummer, like he taught me to do. And I was like, that was really cool. Like it was just something an experience I'd never had before. And it's like there would be plenty of people that would love just to tinker away at a drum set. Like they don't want to be professionals and all that sort of stuff. But if someone could teach them how to do that, then that would be fantastic. And again, like if that's your passion, which it is for him, that's like, and he's got a gift, obviously. He's like really talented. I've watched him go and get the latest Midnight Oil or the U2 CD type thing, and literally within listening to it for an hour or two, he will actually have all of those songs down pat on drums. That is ridiculous. Like there's such talent. Yeah.
Andrew, new career if you're listening.
I've
told him quite a few times. Even other people started to say that too. I've shared it with a few people. They're like, "Oh my god, that would be amazing!" So
I know.
Get across the line. Yes.
Okay, show him the end of this life then.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, that sort of rounds up. Maybe that rounds out our series. I don't know. We haven't talked about if there's anything else that needs to be talked about in this series, but we'll have a chat about that. That could be rounding out our series. Who knows? It's the infinite. We don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. But we could be back to our lucky dip. Who knows?
Yes.
So, thank you, Jasmine, for all your contributions in the chat as well.
Thanks.
It's been awesome. There's been some really cool feedback, and let us know in the chat what's going on for you. Like, have you been
your gifts are
on a project? And what are your gifts that you feel to put out to the world? Are you putting it out to the world? What's stopping you from doing that right now? Are you doing 100%? Are you just doing 70%? 50%? 95%? Even 95%? Got to question why.
All in.
Got to question why. 2 feet in, everybody. Let's do it. We can do it. We can all do this together.
And we can only sort of say from our own experience of doing, bringing that attitude, if you like, to this project of like, no, we're going to do everything from that infinite space as much as we can and pull ourselves up when we get caught up in an ego space, because that happens too. But the amount of angles this idea of ours has been going and shifted and twists and turns over the last, say, 3 months is all because we're staying in that infinite space and we're not afraid to just shift something up because it's not feeling fun anymore. Or and it, you know, maybe on the outside it doesn't look too different to you guys out there because we're just showing up for daily talks, but from in the background there's lots of stuff going on. Around. But even things like bringing in the infinite lucky dip, like we weren't doing that in the beginning. We were sitting around trying to come up with a topic before we jumped on. And sometimes it was really obvious there was something that would happen during our day and we'd talk about that. But sometimes we were kind of really thinking, I don't know what to talk about, or very much in our head, you know, and then we're like, nah, got to get out of our head. So what if we have some ideas that we've already written down? Okay, let's do that. So then it was like, we could do a lucky dip. Let's do that. That sounds like fun. Like, and so that's sort of how the ideas are born, and we just go with what's showing up and play with them too. So don't be afraid to play with some creative ways of showing up too with the gifts in the world.
But you've got to be in action.
Fully.
Yeah. But you do have to be in action. We couldn't have realised that we need an infinite lucky dip if we weren't in action, and we were still sitting and talking about doing lives rather than actually doing them. So I think that's a really key point. If you take nothing out of this session except that you have to be in action. If you're going to get the next step, that's the only way it comes.
And just that growth factor too, I'm thinking the unknown space, like we're choosing to do everything from the knowingness of being infinite. And so the results, if you like, or the outcomes and how the things are unfolding, it's just it's quite exponential sort of right now what's actually happening from our perspective anyway. It's kind of like beyond what we thought we would be doing or where we're going with something, or the ideas just evolve. So it's kind of like just sort of really proving to ourselves that you don't need to know. Like it's kind of, there's more fun in the unknown, and it will go way bigger or way more expansive than you can actually ever see. So it doesn't mean it has to be big in terms of life-changing, world-changing idea, but it's more just the expansion that you'll feel is way beyond anything that I've felt before by coming really from this space. So,
it's definitely a very different feeling and different experience this time, right?
So it's worth playing in infinite space.
Cool. All right. Well, there you go.
Longest conversation, I think.
Hey?
I think this is our longest conversation now.
This is our longest conversation. 1 hour and 7 minutes. Good grief. Well, I knew I was going to be pretty in-depth to pick this one, so I'm glad we've
it was a bit of a different focus. This one's a little mini series, so they're going to be a little bit more in-depth dive into some topics. So go back to some shorter ones perhaps if that presents to do.
We can shut up.
All right. Thanks for joining us.
All right. See you tomorrow. Gifted infinite beings.
Bye.